Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Eugene Stefanov. I'm part of the marketing team at Perficient, and I'm very excited that you are here with us today to listen in on our webinar, Enriching the Value of Clinical Data with Oracle Data Management Workbench. Before we cover some basic housekeeping items and move on to a brief overview of Perficient, I'll mention that we are recording today. So in the next day or so, we'll be sure to email you with information on how to access this presentation. All participants on this call will be in listen-only mode. This means that everyone is on mute. You can submit questions to the speakers at any time today by typing them in the chat feature, which is located on the left side of your screen. Please make sure you state your questions clearly, and keep in mind other webinar participants will not see who asked which questions. Your questions to the speakers will be anonymously addressed as time allows towards the end of the presentation. Now that I've covered the logistics, let's just move on to a quick overview of Perficient. So who are we? We are a consulting firm that delivers digital experience, business optimization, and industry solutions. The work we do helps cultivate and captivate customers as well as drive efficiency and productivity. We have numerous locations across the US and Europe, as well as offshore facilities in India and China. A little bit more, we were founded in 1997. We are a public company that's traded on the NASDAQ, and we have about 3,000 employees. We formed strategic partnerships with major technology vendors, such as Oracle, of course, and we also have dedicated solution and industry practices. One of these industry practices is life sciences. The graphic here shows our depth of experience. You can see that we have relationships with 37 of the world's largest life science companies, according to Forbes. I won't go into more detail about our experience on this call, but you are welcome to look at this slide more closely when you receive the link to the presentation in a couple of days. All right, now that I've covered the housekeeping items, I would like to turn over the call to today's speakers, Prabha Ranganathan and Srinivas Kari.
Morning, everyone. This is Prabha Ranganathan. I'm part of Perficient Life Sciences team. I'm the Delivery Director for our Clinical Data Warehousing and Analytics practice. I'm happy to be here. And Srinivas?
Great. Thank you very much, Prabha. My name is Srinivas Kari, and I'm a Director of Product Strategy here at Oracle. I'm responsible for our clinical data management applications and our cloud platform. And I think it's in this regard that I really want to spend a little bit of time talking about what we want to cover in the presentation today. There are really two parts which I think you'll find very useful. The first part is about our solution, our cloud platform, our cloud platform to manage clinical data, to make it easier for data managers to review data and manage the flows of clinical data across the organization. And the second part is to look at some specific use cases that Perficient is particularly qualified to talk about with their experience of using our product. And I think you'll find that particularly informational, and certainly please take the opportunity to ask questions should you have any. And of course, we'll have some next steps, and I look forward at the very end to addressing all of your questions should we have enough time. That's the agenda. Let me move on to the first part of the presentation, which is to talk about Oracle Data Management Workbench. And I think it's worthwhile perhaps reviewing some of the history behind DMW. And before we do that, I'd like to point out the safe harbor statement that you can see on the screen right now. And please pay attention to it, as some of the statements that I may be stating may be forward-looking and shouldn't necessarily be used to make purchasing decisions. So as I said, I think it's worthwhile looking at some of the history around clinical data flows and clinical data management in general. I think many of the attendees, or many of you, would clearly understand that clinical data is the lifeblood of clinical R&D, and the nature of clinical data has evolved over the last few decades. And certainly we are seeing an increase in the volume of variety of that clinical data with the use of real-world evidence, data sources, the emergence of sensors and mobility devices, as well as the collection and use of genomic data. And all of these data sources have an impact in the way that organizations have to make decisions. More recently, healthcare data is now also playing a part in that clinical decision making. Healthcare data, which looks at large segments of the patient population to characterize their particular genetic makeup, as well as their propensity and prevalence of disease, is also being used to optimize how drugs are developed and to perhaps create opportunities for precision medicine. And I think what's interesting that I certainly have seen in the news is, a new drug from one of our customers, Keytruda, which just epitomizes the kind of innovation that brings together elements of precision medicine as well as clinical data. And Keytruda is an example where a drug has been developed that looks at biomarkers within an individual to determine whether or not it is effective in that particular individual, as opposed to the actual tumor where it was found, whether it's in the heart or lungs. So what we are seeing is that when organizations are able to pull in data from different sources, they're able to innovate, they're able to make very effective clinical decisions, and the overall timeline required for approval can be significantly reduced, perhaps by up to 50%. And that's really the opportunity that we want to help our customers explore and understand. So if we look a little further and perhaps a little more detail into that area, it is clear that clinical R&D is all about data. It's all about accessing data, access to good quality data, and perhaps it's access to standardized data, data that can be easily understood and consumed for various stakeholders downstream. It's also about being able to access this data in a very easy-to-use way, and it's about taking this data and doing something useful with it, whether it's analytics or perhaps it's some other form of statistical analysis. And that's all around the need to demonstrate safety and efficacy. In addition to that, many of the organizations that I speak to, they talk about being able to capture data lineage, establish the chain of custody around the collection of data together with the use of data. And typically today, what we see is that many of our organizations, they have different data collection systems, they have different data management systems, they have different statistical analysis systems, and all of these different systems are intertwined and integrated with a set of custom integrations. And that calls into question the provenance of the data, it calls into question the lineage of the data, and certainly from an accuracy and veracity perspective, many of the consumers of the data are always struggling to get the latest and greatest information from their clinical development program. And in that regard, having a single source of truth is an area which is certainly very, very important to our customers. And that's all around the area of data lineage. In addition to that, whenever multiple systems are involved, if you're dealing with very sensitive data or blinded data, then being able to manage the blinded status of that data is also very, very important because, of course, it establishes the integrity of the trial. All of these issues need to be brought together and addressed in a regulatory compliant manner for your system, and that's where we think with our solution we offer a compelling value proposition for the clinical R&D organization, because ultimately what we are bringing to market or have brought to market is a platform that provides an immutable system record for data, clinical data, that is accessible to any particular consumer that wants to use it. And that's really what Oracle DMW is all about. And if I was to visualize this and show you what it would look like, it's really quite simple. We have a platform that allows organizations to collect data and it's their EDC system, or it could be the Oracle EDC system, which is Oracle Inform. It allows you to collect the data into your EDC system. It allows you to seamlessly bring that data in with a pre-built off-the-shelf integration that's part of our cloud platform into a data management platform. And within the data management platform, you're able to create data models. You're able to clean the data with a very simple, very easy, nice-to-use interface. You're able to create different structured data types for submission, for analysis, for review, and whichever structure you want, really. The number of data models is really dependent on your organization, as well as for downstream statistical analysis. And all of these processes are supported in our cloud platform, which means that you are consuming a business service. So you don't have to worry about installing software. You don't have to worry about disaster recovery. You don't have to worry about any of the underlying technology complexity, such as patching, maintaining, and so on. Oracle will take care of all of that with standard service level agreements. So you have access to all of the business capabilities in a very easy, straightforward manner. So let me describe further what this service is specifically. So the Oracle Data Management Cloud Service, it provides you with a single platform to aggregate, clean, and transform clinical data from multiple sources. And it allows you to do this very quickly, very easily, and most significantly, you can automate this. If you spend a little bit of time setting up some libraries, setting up some workflows, you can create new studies much more quickly, much more efficiently, with fewer resources, and at greater quality, because you'll have a lot less or fewer manual steps in the process of creation. And I'll talk a little bit further about that in my presentation. So that's really what we are announcing with Oracle DMW. And if you look at this from a visual perspective, our cloud platform supports a variety of data sources. So for example, as I've said earlier, you can bring in Inform over on the left as a data source. And with Inform, we have a particularly efficient integration. It's a bidirectional integration. So as you're collecting data in Inform, it's automatically being sent over to DMW. And in return, should a data manager have an issue with that particular data point, they can create a query, and that query is automatically sent back to Inform for resolution at the site. So we have this very sophisticated, efficient integration that's provided as part of our platform that enables data managers to resolve queries much, much faster at much, much lower cost than having to do this manually. And because DMW has a really nice UI, they have a consolidated view of all of the data sources from which they can, almost like a cockpit where they can direct queries to whoever needs to resolve them. So that's the integration with Inform. We can also bring in data as flat files, whether it's laboratory data, mHealth data, EMR, or perhaps even patient diary data into our cloud platform. So our cloud platform, as I said earlier, you can aggregate all of your different data sources. You can clean those data sources using a variety of functionality, such as validation checks, and you can transform your data into various data models. And these data models are really dependent on your needs. And our platform provides you with a very simple UI to perform your transformations. And these transformations are reusable. So once you've written that transformation once, you can then apply that transformation to however many studies you want in the future. So as you can see, if you have a library of transformations, a library of validation checks, a library of standards, you can reuse all of these in a template that you can apply to a brand new study. And that means that setting up a study that took perhaps weeks or perhaps days literally can be accomplished with a few clicks. And that's our anticipation with our platform. Once the data is in our platform, it can then be made available to other users of the system in a secure manner. And these users may be operational, clinical operations, they may be medical review, perhaps you want to create submission-ready data sets, or perhaps you want to create some data models for some other purpose. But all of these end users are able to access the data in DMW in a read-only manner. So the data is very secure, and they can have access to the latest data without having to speak to individuals, send emails, and wait. That's really all eliminated with our integration. So as I said, DMW is an end-to-end data management platform. It helps you collect data from your source systems and bring it in to a consolidated view of that data. And that consolidated view of data is your single source of truth for a variety of downstream users. And the whole idea with our platform is that it's intended to accelerate your workflows and your timelines to deploy new studies. It's designed to reduce the cost associated with setting up new studies. It's designed to improve the quality by which you can collect and clean that data. And ultimately, as you scale this out, the overall risk associated with data and its consumption by downstream stakeholders is also reduced. So all in all, it's a win-win proposition for pretty much every member of the clinical R&D organization. And the final point that I make about our platform is that it's regulatory compliant in the sense that it provides you with all of the data lineage as well as the chain of custody information that you would need to respond to a regulatory query in one place within our platform. Okay, so having said that, that's the introduction to DMW and a little bit about what it is. Let me now focus on a few examples of DMW features that perhaps could make your life much easier. So the first feature I'd like to talk about is data models. So data models are really very important in clinical R&D. They characterize how data is collected, and data models also characterize how data is consumed. Oracle DMW has a very powerful feature in the sense that it can import a data model from Inform. So if you have designed a study in Inform, you can bring in the metadata from Inform into DMW. Not only can you bring in the metadata that describes the study, of course you can also bring in the clinical data as well. And the data model that's created in DMW is called the input data model. What you can then do with your input data model is transform that data model into a variety of different structures. You can create functions to perform this transformation on individual data items to create new data structures. And some of you may be aware there are different data structures for different uses. Some data structures are very good to support data review, and these are review data models. Some data structures are very good for submission, and these are submission data tabulation models, data sets. And there are other models that are useful within organizations for very specific purposes. DMW enables you to create however many different types of data models for your downstream users. And once you've created a data model, you can reuse that data model for new studies. So this capability to create and use data models to transform data from point A to point B is a really powerful feature to democratize the way that data is consumed within your organization in a very robust manner. And as I said earlier, DMW automatically brings in the clinical data model from Inform. So you can rapidly start to use and transform that data. You don't have to spend any time creating, validating, and testing input and target data models after you've done it once. You can just reuse it. So this is the first key area where I think our customers will really gain significant benefit. The second key area is all around discrepancies. Historically, data managers take and review data from EDC systems. They may do this manually. They may do this within the EDC system, but there are a number of problems with that. They may not have access to all the different sources of data. They may do this manually using documents. They may do this outside of the system. And even sending back discrepancies to be resolved may take a significant amount of time. What we have with DMW is a consolidated view of all of the discrepancies associated with a clinical trial. And the reason you can have that is because DMW sources all of the data from all of your different sources into one location. So your lab data, your clinical data, And should you want other data sources, perhaps if you want to look at safety data as well as part of that, perhaps you can do that as well. But all in all, once it's in DMW, you have one centralized store of that clinical data, and you can raise discrepancies and you can route discrepancies. And we have a great UI for you to do that quickly and efficiently. And there are a number of features within that user interface, such as color coding, flags, custom listings that allow you to quickly identify and deal with discrepancies without spending weeks and months in a frustrating process of cleaning those up. So managing discrepancies is absolutely key to the value of DMW for a data manager. And I think as I come to the end of my presentation, there's two other features that I'd like to talk about. One is validation checks and perhaps edit checks, depending on how you want to define them. Within DMW, you have the capability to raise discrepancies automatically or manually. You can create them automatically with pre-programmed checks within the system. And once you've created them once, you can certainly create libraries around that, and you can start to reuse those libraries for different studies. And because you have access to all of your data in this one platform, you can create your global libraries within DMW. And that's really very powerful in reusability and lowering the cost of deploying new studies. The validation checks, a very powerful feature. We have this great user interface, a wizard, to make it very easy to write your validation checks, and you can write custom functions within your wizard, again, to increase the level of sophistication around designing and deploying these validation checks. So that's validation checks. And the final slide that I think I want to talk about is exporting the data. And if there are some of you in the stats organization who want access to the data in DMW, you can certainly get access to it. Later on this year, we'll be providing an update to our cloud platform where you can connect to our cloud platform and you can read from the database clinical data, and you can consume it straight into your desktop SaaS program. And this uses a adapter that we will be releasing. And this adapter, it allows access to data in a very secure, and if the data is blinded, then of course you'll have access to blinded data if you have the right role and responsibility. But again, this capability just demonstrates how DMW can act as that single focal point for all of your clinical data and to provide it to downstream stakeholders depending on their particular use case. So in summary, what have I talked about? At the very beginning, at the very start of my presentation, I talked about how the nature of clinical data is evolving and how healthcare data and clinical data is coming together, and organizations need to develop platforms and capabilities to manage that, because that's how real innovation is being driven as part of clinical R&D. I then talked about how Oracle has brought to the market a cloud platform that can take data from Oracle Inform as our EDC system, and it can supply that to our clinical data management product as one complete integrated platform, which is called the Oracle Data Management Cloud Service. And this cloud service allows you to aggregate, clean, and transform that data to downstream stakeholders. I then talked a little bit about data models and how we make it easy for you to create data models, how we can help you manage your discrepancies, another key area for our data managers, how you can create libraries of validation checks, of transformations, and use them as part of templates. And finally, I mentioned how you could use SaaS to bring the data out to perform downstream analytics. So that's really what I wanted to talk about with DMW, and I'm really excited to pass it over to Prabha, part of Perficient. Prabha I've known for many, many years. He's a very experienced individual who works with many of our most important customers looking at DMW and how to implement DMW within their organization. And I'm really pleased that she'll be able to share some of her learning experiences as well as some of her expertise in describing how our customers achieve success with DMW. So I'd like to pass you over to Prabha. And Prabha, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Srinivas. And good morning, everyone. So what I would like to focus on is, we have an overview of DMW right now. How do you see this DMW in your environment? What are some of the business use cases that can be used that can be implemented in your environment using DMW. I've taken only 4. This list can grow significantly, as you can imagine, based on the functionalities of DMW. So I've taken just 4 use cases. I'm going to explain the business use case first, and then also provide a high level how DMW can help in addressing those use cases. So one thing which Srinivas already alluded to is the usage of templates in DMW, in that how you can use templates to set up your study. So from your study setup point of view, your business you'll typically have study builders setting up studies in your environment. So now you don't want them to spend a lot of manual effort in setting up one study after another. Instead, if you have reusable components for your studies, it will make your study setup far more easier and faster. In order to set up studies, you may have some standards at a study level or at a grouping level, or at a therapeutic area level, depending on how you group studies in your environment. It could be therapeutic area or a project or a folder, however you group studies, they may all have some standard setups that are involved in it. How can you reuse these standard setups from one study to another without having to do all the manual work and also spending a lot of time setting up the customizations needed to set up the study? So DMW provides something called study templates. So if you know how, for example, your oncology studies are going to be set up or your neurology studies are going to be set up, they may be different in the way you collect data and the way you transform data. And if you have some studies already set up, you can mark these studies as templates. So you can have a template for your oncology study. You can have your set up a template for your neurology study. And every time you set up your study, you can use these templates as the basis for setting up your study. So 80% of your standardizations will come to you from the template over to your study. And now all your study builder has to do is set up the remaining study-specific configurations in DMW. So this, at the end of the day, speeds up your study setup process. In addition to that, you could have multiple standards defined in your environment. For example, the standard for your data models, your lab data model, the central lab data model, or the local lab data model, you're always going to get data in a specific format. Or your data managers may be familiar with a standard review data model, which they use for reviewing and cleaning the data purposes. So you may have some standards specified in your environment. Those can be defined as library data models in DMW, and they can be reused from one study to another. And also, for example, you may have some specific standards, specific template related to your safety data or your efficacy data. So you can set these as templates and then copy them over into your study as and when needed. So with DMW's existing functionality, you can use the templates, the study templates as a startup for your study building activity. And then from there, you can customize it using either library data models or other studies or copying bits and pieces of setups from other areas into your current study to make things faster. Some examples which you can copy are, you can copy data models, your individual tables, your transformations, your validation checks, your custom listings, and the list just goes on. So using all these rich features of DMW, you can set up a process for study building, which primarily makes it less manual and more automated. As more and more studies are introduced into your environment, this process can be automated significantly. The next one which I would like to talk about is typically what you would do is let me go back to your study review, data review. So in your environment, once you have collected data from various sources and you transform them to a standard model which your data managers are familiar with, you want to set up a process with which you can review and clean the data more efficiently. In order to do that, the data model should be familiar. The data reviewer should be familiar with the data model, and they should be able to mark as and when they're reviewing data, the status of the review. And this status should be available either at your individual record level for every table you're looking at, or even at a subject visit level. You can mark a subject visit as clean, or the process is undergoing, it's in review right now, or nobody has started review yet. So you can have various states associated with your data review process. So at a high level, when a data manager is reviewing and cleaning the data, they need to have a process implemented in their environment so that they can clearly associate a record or a subject visit to see if the data is clean or not clean, or what is the status of the data. And what DMW offers us is there is a functionality in DMW which is called flags and states. Depending on your use case, your setup, and how you want to review and clean data, you can set up flags and states and associate them at either at a record level or at a subject visit level. And taking it one more level, what you can do is you can associate some transformations and validations to automatically set these states and flags for you, so that when you start your review process, a lot of things have been automatically set up. An example is, for example, if there is a discrepant data for your subject visit, you can actually set that specific subject visit as not clean, and somebody has to look at it, so you associate a state with it, and then you can say it's not cleaned. And later on, you can run a report and see what all is not cleaned, or you can set up a filter which basically lets you look only part of the data in DMW to focus only on this data which is not clean, and you can basically set up your environment so that the filter, when a data manager goes and looks at the data, they filter it only by those subject visit records which are not clean, and you can focus on cleaning those records. So it basically, at the end of the day, it boils down to your business process and how you can use the existing DMW functionality to implement a data review process that is in alignment with your business process. So that is the data review and cleaning part of DMW. And for the next step, now you have a process that does the data review and cleaning. How do you review the progress? How do you know if a study, for a given study, there is progress being made when it comes to data review and cleaning, and you want to know how much more is left to be cleaned, and what all activities are pending for the study? You may want to look at what is clean, what is not clean, what is yet to be cleaned, who should be doing the cleaning, and what is the status of updates. I have some data which is discrepant, and I have sent it to my data sources for them to fix the data or address those discrepancies. What is the status of that information? You may have a series of information that may be needed based on the status of your review. And what DMW, again, with flags, states, and which can be set up at subject visit level or at the record level, or using all your the existing process which you're following for your data review cleaning, you can summarize the status of the study currently and get all the information that you need, whether the data is clean, not clean, or what is pending and who has to be doing the work. In addition to doing all this, you can also set up your custom programs and transformations, and so that these flags and states are automatically set, so that when your data reviewer comes to DMW, they can filter and focus on the items that they need to focus on. So these are some of the functionalities within DMW which can be enhanced to meet your business process. The last use case which I have over here is on study milestone readiness. So now we have seen how you can set up a process for your data review and cleaning purposes. You have also seen how you can set up some kind of filtering mechanism or some reporting which can be used to monitor the progress of your data review and cleaning. And now, extending this further, you can check whether your study is ready for a certain milestone. Am I ready for an interim report submission? Or is my study ready for a study log? What is the current status of my study? What is pending over here? Who should be doing the pending work? And how long is it going to take for me to achieve this milestone? What are the tasks that need to be completed in order to achieve this milestone? These are some of your common use cases when it comes to data management. And DMW's functionalities can be used to address these functionalities. So again, going back to flags and states, they're going to tell me at a record level or at a subject visit level, what is the status of the review and cleaning for that specific data which I'm looking at. Using transformations and validation checks, I can set additional flags and states to reflect the current status of the review process. It could be at the record level, it could be at the subject visit level, or it could even be extended to set at a study level. And now I can also look at my prior history, study performance of my previous studies. For example, it took me n number of weeks to clean 20 subject visits. And using that data, I can project how much more time is it going to take for me to clean the rest of the subject visits which I have for the study, and also summarize who needs to be doing the cleaning. Is it the data reviewer? Is it the medical monitor? Is it the clinical data reviewer? Or is it an external source? Should I expect data from an external lab or a central lab? How am I going to get the right data to be cleaned? I can predict using all my prior study performance what all needs to be done going forward from this point on in order for my study to reach a milestone. So these are some of the common use cases which we've been hearing from most of our customers when we talk about data management. And of course, these can be extended. There are a lot more use cases, but I just wanted to pick a few use cases which you can envision DMW in your data management environment so that you can make your data review and cleaning processes more streamlined, automated, and user-friendly. So moving on, what I would also like to briefly talk about is, so you've given us an overview of DMW. You've also presented us some of the use cases for DMW. What's next? So for those who haven't seen DMW at all, a recommendation would be, get some demos from either Perficient or Oracle. Do reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to set up some demos for you to give you more introduction. We talked about a lot of functionalities, and still, it's more, you get a better idea about DMW when you see it working. So a demo of DMW or even some advanced use cases. How do you set up some of these use cases? Can you show us in DMW how to do these things? We'll be more than happy to set up some demos for you. Another thing would be, collaborate on your requirements. See what you want to achieve using for data management and cleaning purposes. And, using the information you have about DMW, how do you prioritize those requirements and come up with a roadmap where you can set up your data management and cleaning environment. And basically, at the end of the day, the DMW, the product, your business process, everything should be harmonized together so that from your end user perspective, it's all streamlined and goes well together. For all these, a little bit more additional background from Perficient perspective, we have a very strong team of technical and functional architects who are very, very familiar with, the life sciences industry in general and the data management in particular, how the data should be cleaned, reviewed, collaborated, combined together, and how to integrate with not only within DMW, but with your downstream systems, as well as collecting data from other systems, bringing it into DMW, combining them together, building in transformations, and transforming the data so that your downstream systems can consume this data more efficiently using some of the functionalities of DMW, which are right there now. So along with assessing what you need for your business purposes, doing some gap assessments, identifying where the tools may be needed, can we build some utilities to meet some of these gaps where DMW out-of-the-box functionality may need to be a little bit more synchronized with your business process, more customizations that are specific to your business process, analyzing those, bringing in our technical experts to make sure that a solution is implemented that can address all the concerns that you have when it comes to data management, data review, data cleaning activities in your environment. So, and also, do some health checks of your environment, your upstream, downstream systems, how DMW will be fit into it. And once you have a collaborated set of requirements, how do we set up a roadmap, so giving you some guidance on how to address each one of your requirements, prioritizing them, and coming up with a roadmap for your environment. And these are some of the things that we can assist with. And as Eugene mentioned earlier, we have tremendous years of experience within the life sciences space where we can help in configuring, implementing, building utilities, integrating, and manage several of your systems and combine them with the Oracle Health Sciences applications. So with that, let me open up for some questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Prabha. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them in the chat box. We'll get to as many as we can within the next 10 minutes or so. And Srinivas and Prabha, if you can follow along on the questions tab, that would be great. The first question is, hi, I have a question. Does this support coding within EDC TMS dictionaries? Can be downloaded? Does this support coding in CDM activity?
Sure. Let me go ahead and answer that question first. So as part of our cloud platform, DMW Cloud Platform, our next release of our cloud service will automatically include TMS. So that means TMS stands for Oracle Thesaurus Management System. It's our coding tool. It's used by many of the top 10 global pharma companies. As I said, that particular tool will be incorporated into our cloud service, which now means that you'll be able to do your coding using our cloud platform across all of your data sources. So yes, it will be included in our next release, which is planned later on this year.
Great, thank you. Are there data visualizations possible as part of DMW or just via SAS as mentioned in the presentation?
That's another really good question, and I'm going to take a few seconds to answer this. This is a really good use of our tool, which is how can we visualize the data once it's in DMW? And there are a variety of options. The first thing that I'd like to say is that once you have the data in DMW, you do have this option to visualize that data using, as I said, the GVA adapter. That means that you can use your existing tools. If you have some existing tools that can connect to a database, those existing tools, such as Spotfire or some other visualization tools, they can connect into their database, and you can continue to use your existing visualization tools, perhaps to plot some graphs and to look at trends. That's what you can do today. If you're a data reviewer, then it's not so much visualization, it's more around listings and managing discrepancies amongst those listings. And that's where DMW really excels. There's a high degree of functionality that allows you to look at data points, look at discrepancies, raise queries. So that's the two options that you have. Prabha, would you mind talking about some of the key features in DMW that make it easier for a data manager to navigate around listings and to create perhaps custom listings?
Sure. So within DMW, there are out-of-the-box functionalities where, as I briefly mentioned about this in some of the use cases which we discussed, we do have filters that can be set. So these filters, even though I talked in the context of flags and states, there are a lot of options just for filters. For example, if you want to look at the data just at one single patient level, or you want to focus on the data at one site, you can set up your filter criteria in such a way that you want to focus only on a single patient. And when you navigate from one listing to another, you will see only the data for that single patient. Or this could be extended for a single site. You say, I want to look at the data only for this site, and I'm going to navigate between the tables, and now I have only a site-specific view of the data. This is one functionality of DMW. As Srinivas pointed out, there is custom listings that you can create. So basically, you can add your own criteria on the data. You can combine the data from multiple tables. You can join them, union them, depending on what the scenario might be, and you can create your custom listing and look at the data in the format which you want to see. So that's an out-of-the-box functionality of DMW. Just to add to what Srinivas said, one of the common things which we have seen what customers do with data in LSH and DMW is, they create this generic visualization business areas, and using external visualization tools like either Spotfire or JReview, they connect to DMW and initialize these business areas and focus only on the data they want to see. And now they have actually built a visualization tool on top of this tool. That's basically an expansion of the listings which we have too. So those are some of the options which we have.
Great, thank you. The next question is, if we want to use a different tool apart from TMS, then what is the option available?
So you want me to take
another great. Let me start, and then I'll hand over to you. So as I said, we have two flavors of DMW. We have our cloud service, which is our software as a solution service, which comes with TMS. So that's later on this year. That is pre-integrated, works. There's nothing for you to install, manage, or maintain. It's all one particular solution. It's our platform. That's our DMW cloud service. We do have another version of DMW that comes with a much bigger footprint that provides another set of functionality. And that would be the version if you wanted to integrate with other coding tools. Our cloud service already includes it. There is no real option for you to use other coding tools, but certainly now let me hand over to Prabha, and she can talk about how you could use DMW potentially with other tools.
So that would be basically custom integration with other tools. So DMW is shipped with a rich set of public APIs, both DMW and the underlying LSH. So using these, depending on the coding tool that you want to use and the APIs that are available as part of the coding tool, these two can be integrated together. And we have done some similar integrations, not necessarily on DMW, but on LSH at other customers.
I can see there's a number of questions coming through, usually.
Yep. Yeah. So let's go with the next question is, can you explain a little more about the validation tool in the system? Will this require manual entry of test data, and will you be able to extract proof of validation for documentation purposes?
Great question. I'm going to defer to Prabha. She's been dealing with all of our customers in one way or another. Sure. So Prabha, over to you.
So DMW comes with a built-in business lifecycle within it. So you can load development data into a development area. You can load testing data into a testing area. And once you're sure that all the data looks good, all your transformation looks good, and it's been validated by your QC team, then you can promote this to production, and in production you can have your production data flowing in. So you have option to validate your data at different points as and when you're setting up your study. In addition to this, it's a functionality which is part of LSH DMW is built on LSH, which is Life Sciences Data Hub. Within LSH, you can add something called supporting documentation for each one of your, say for example, at the data model level or at the transformations level or at the validation check level, where you could potentially add documents to authorize that this set of functionality has been reviewed and approved. You can get it, have it signed from others, and then you can have have all these documents loaded as supporting documents for that specific functionality. That is something which we have seen customers use for proving that the functionality has been validated before it was promoted to production use. And so the electronic signature part is not built-in part of DMW or LSH, but it is something where the documentation which you can take outside of DMW LSH, you have all the validation steps included, you got the sign-off needed, then you can load it into LSH as part of your supporting documentation to prove that this has been validated before promoting to production.
Great, thank you. If I am already running the study, then what efforts am I required to integrate my study with DMW? Whether I need to integrate data at site level also?
Well, with our cloud service, Eugene, it's pretty straightforward. There's little or no effort. If you are running a trial in Inform in our cloud, when you are provided with DMW, there's an integration already that is provisioned, and literally you press a few buttons and you bring over the clinical data as well as the metadata from your study, and that's pretty much it. Once the data and the metadata is within DMW, you can then start to apply templates to transform that data into various formats. So yeah, that's the simple answer to that one.
All right.
Yeah, and just to add to it, whether you want to bring the data at site level or not, at the end of the day, it's up to your business process what level of data you're bringing in. Typically from Inform, the site, all the data is brought over to DMW, from Inform to DMW.
Thanks. Do you connect to DMW or to LSH with Spotfire, JReview, etc.?
Yes, that's a more technical question. Our cloud service is all-inclusive. Our cloud service doesn't require LSH. It provides a data manager with all of the functionality that they need to raise, manage discrepancies, as well as do all the transformation. So the DMW cloud service doesn't require LSH. It's packaged as a straightforward web application. Our enterprise version, that actually implements LSH as the underlying technology foundation. So that's used by many of our much larger customers who have much more sophisticated integration as well as data management needs. So that's, in general, the high-level answer to that. And that question is actually worthwhile looking in more detail. So if you want some more information on that, please feel to contact both myself and Prabha, and we'll be happy to take that question on a more one-to-one basis.
Yeah, and one minor point to it, this is where we were talking about GVA functionality that is typically used for connecting visualization tools to look at DMW and LSH data.
Okay. What is the feedback you're getting from your customer base regarding DMW?
Okay, great. So it's been great. That's the first thing that I can say. We have a really good focus group of customers who are using DMW today. We meet monthly. Most of our customers who are using DMW, they are really focused on data management. They want to take away the pain of managing discrepancies, and they're talking to us about how they could do that by improving the UI, by improving the workflow, and using automation to do that. So it's really around discrepancy management with DMW. In addition to that, we have a number of customers who want to look at visualization, how they can, let's say, leverage all of the consolidated information in DMW with their visualization tools. So that's at a very high level. The feedback from our customer base is taking away the pain from data management.
Great, thank you. What is the roadmap for DMW?
Okay, good. Yeah, another good question. So the roadmap for DMW is quite exciting. As I said, we are focused on data management and the pain associated with data management. So we are working really hard on the user interface and the user experience with that. So our next few releases are all around making it much easier, much faster for our customers to clean data. In addition to that, we are looking at providing some additional capabilities with coding, as well as capabilities with data ingestion. So really, they're the key feature areas that we are prioritizing with our roadmap.
All right, a couple more questions. Is there an option to get access to a DMW environment where customers can try the product?
Yeah, absolutely. It would be our pleasure to provide you with an environment. We have a number of sales environments that we could use. So yeah, please get in contact. Happy to provide an environment. Thank you.
Okay. Can I integrate other CDMS systems, like from other vendors, with DMW?
Yes, you can. In general, that will be something that we'll need to talk to you about and we'll need to scope out. We'll need to understand what an EDC system that you're using. We ourselves are working on various ways to make it easier for you to integrate with other EDC systems. But yes, that's certainly an option, certainly something we're happy to help you consider.
Okay. Is it suitable for small to mid-sized customers, say with 5 to 10 trials?
Prabha, do you want to answer this question?
Sure. So the answer is yes. So we have, different, like Srinivas pointed out, there's a cloud version of DMW that's available, as well as an enterprise version of DMW that's available, and both can be supported for much small, even if you have 5 to 10 trials, it's definitely set up for a small number of trials. So.
Great.
Anything to add, Srinivas? I know. Yeah.
No, I think
Eugene.
Go ahead,
Srinivas.
No, I would just say, I reiterate. Our goal with our platform is to make it easier, faster, cheaper for organizations to have some of the sophisticated data management capabilities. So really, we are looking to target whether you've had one trial or whether you have 100 trials. We literally have approaches that span your particular need. And together with our partners, I'm sure that we can come up with a very pragmatic approach to delivering value to you.
Perfect. So we are up at the hour. We got through most of the questions, but if you do have additional questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to Srinivas or Prabha, and some information will be provided to you in the follow-up email you get with the presentation. In the meantime, there are additional resources on Perficient's website. You can access this by just going to Perficient.com, and you can also go to Oracle.com and download the material there on DMW. I'd like to thank everybody for joining today's call. Thank you, Srinivas. Thank you, Prabha, for presenting. We hope that everybody found it very helpful, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thanks so much, everyone.